How are humans contributing to a global loss of biodiversity? As we increase our dependence on technology, we increase our need for energy to power that technology. This in turn puts greater pressures on both our local environment and even on the global environment. Because our Western society is strongly connected to economics and the importance of making money, our ever-increasing demand on our environment is contributing to biodiversity loss at a rate never experienced before by Earth. Extinction can be defined as the permanent disappearance of an organism. In other words, all the members of a species has died. This means a loss of biodiversity. For example, the extinction of the great auk and the Newfoundland wolf from our province has resulted in a loss of biodiversity. When they are gone forever. According to the David Suzuki Foundation, we are endangering the existence of living things to the point where we are losing at least 1% of existing species per decade, which means we're losing at least 2 species an hour. This is 2,500 times greater than the rate at which species have disappeared due to evolution or other natural processes. Between 1,600 and 1,900 it is estimated that one species went extinct every 4 years. In modern times, the rate is soaring. The graph below shows how the rate of extinction has increased over the past 30 years. It is projected that in the early years of the 21st century, one species will become extinct every 30 minutes. Causes of extinction. 1. Natural environmental change. The history of our planet, recorded in rocks and fossils, reveals several large-scale disasters that have destroyed huge numbers of species. Possibly the largest mass extinction occurred about 245 million years ago. That catastrophe, in which about 80% of all species perished, was followed by another mass extinction 208 million years ago. This event marked the beginning of the age of dinosaurs. Then the most famous mass extinction, even though it was not as disastrous as some of the earlier ones, happened about 65 million years ago, and it marked the end of the age of the dinosaurs. Mass extinctions occurred before humans existed, but scientists believe the causes were much different from those of modern times. The most promising theories involved asteroids crashing into Earth. A collision would raise tremendous amounts of dust, blocking light from the sun, and set off many volcanoes, quickly changing environmental conditions. There is evidence that an asteroid hit Earth about 65 million years ago. The crater, just off the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, is 9.6 kilometers and 300 kilometers wide. 2. Competition. If a new species enters an area, species that eat the same food must compete with it. A species that is better at finding food, reproducing, or defending its territory could force competing species into extinction. If one species disappears, even if only from part of where it lives, it can affect other species that rely on it for food. The Banff long-nosed ace, a small minnow, was recently declared extinct. It was unable to compete with the guppies, swordtails, and other tropical fish that were accidentally released into warm marsh waters below the hot springs in Banff National Park. 3. Loss of habitat, logging, oil exploration, expansion of agriculture, road construction and expanding cities are just some of the reasons why habitats are destroyed and organisms become extinct. As the human population increases, we increase our residential boundaries and at the same time destroy the habitats of wildlife. For example, the world's largest cities continue to grow and expand and thus destroy natural habitats. Frog species are exceptionally vulnerable to such expansion of human territory. Frogs need both water and land habitats in different stages of their life cycle. If one of these habitats is lost, or if the transition from one to another is prevented, then frogs will not reproduce successfully. Failed reproduction will lead to extinction. 4. Pollution of air and water. Pollution of the air by activities such as the burning of fossil fuels such as coal, oil and gas by vehicles and industry can produce acid rain. When acid rain falls in lakes and ponds, it causes the water to become acidic and this can affect the mobility of sperm cells in frogs. It can also cause deformities in embryo development and death to a large population of a frog species. Also, runoff of fertilizers, pesticides and industrial waste into lakes and ponds can lead to extinction of aquatic dwelling organisms. 5. Climate change. Human activities that are causing a change in climate have also been linked to the disappearance of organisms. There is evidence of a global warming trend. One hypothesis links increasing global temperatures with the increased use of fossil fuels by automobiles. Climate changes can cause important changes in local ecosystems. For example, if the climate becomes drier, frogs will suffer. No frog can stay in the sun too long or completely separate itself from fresh water. Effects of extinction. Because every organism in an ecosystem is connected to all the other organisms, the reduction in biodiversity caused by the extinction of a single species can cause a domino effect. The removal of one part from an ecosystem can cause the collapse of an entire food chain. For example, overhunting of sea otters along the west coast of North America removed the main predator of the sea urchin and the number of sea urchins increased. Sea urchins eat kelp, and as the number of sea urchins grew, the amount of kelp declined, and so did the fish that relied on the kelp for food and habitat. Reintroducing the otter resulted in the fish numbers increasing. Classification system for at-risk species. Species whose numbers are declining below a certain level are considered to be at risk. In Canada, more than 250 species of plants and animals are at various degrees of risk. The classification system for at-risk species places organisms in one of 5 categories. 1. Extinct, a species that is not found anywhere. 2. Endangered, a species that is close to extinction in all parts of Canada or in a significantly large location. 3. Extirpated, any species that no longer exists in one part of Canada but can be found in others. 4. Threatened, any species that is likely to become endangered if factors that make it vulnerable are not reversed. 5. Vulnerable, any species that is at risk because of low declining numbers at the fringe of its range or in some restricted area.